Hey, this is Joey Vera from Armored Saint, and you are watching We Go to 11.
Friendly is good. Radio Amor.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
All right, man. Hey, thanks so much for your time. This will be for We Go to 11. And so you guys have this tour with Wasp, which
Yeah,
is old school. It was so old
yeah,
school that I remember you guys were supporting Wasp along with Metallica way back when. And I
that's right.
and you guys wrapped up the tour in Portland, Oregon.
Did we?
I think it was. I think it was at the tail end. At least that's what my recollection. Oh, it's been
Yeah,
so long. You're going
you're
to be at that
probably
same.
right.
You're going to be at the same venue, which at the
Yeah.
time was the Starry Night. Now it's the Roseland
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Theater.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So if things kind of come go, eventually things come full circle if you stick around long enough, right?
Oh, yeah,
So,
definitely.
how geeked are you guys about rejoining Wasp for this second run of dates? Because
It's
I mean, go for it.
it's great. It's really great. I mean, we did this again. We did this tour with them in 2022
Mhm.
in the US and Canada, and as you mentioned, we had toured with them in '85 with Metallica. That was a pretty infamous tour, Metallica, Wasp, and Armored Saint,
Right.
and it was an awesome time. It was our first kind of like our first delve into club tours, which was amazing at that time. And we had just had a new record out, March of the Saint, '84, so it was all brand new and it was killer. It was
Mhm.
really great touring with Wasp in '22. They invited us back out to tour with them and do this kind of like 40-year anniversary sort of tour, and it was really, really great. The band was very, very cool to us. Everything was awesome. The crew was very cool to us. So the production side of it was also great. The band members are all super, super nice people. We got along great with everybody. It was one of those like super low stressful tours I've ever been on.
Right. So,
And you got to count your blessings for those
yeah,
things.
no kidding.
So
So,
when they called us back, it was like, yeah, we're in. Let's,
so it
sign
was
us up.
a no brainer for you guys, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we had plans to do some. We're writing a new record right now. We about midway through writing a new record, and we're a little hesitant just on the schedule,
Hmm.
but once we realized that it was going to be, it could be like a repeat of what we did in 22. We had such a great time, and it was a really great tour. We decided to just put our writing on hold and do the tour. So we're really looking forward to it.
Right. And I know there was a third band on the bill initially, but they've since dropped out. So does that open things up for some more set time for you guys, or how's that gonna get worked out?
That's a good question. I don't know necessarily. I think our set time is the same, and it
Mm,
was always the same. So I
right.
don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that it changed much.
Okay.
So we're playing about 45, 50 minutes,
Okay.
like we did on the last tour.
That's almost like a casino gig anymore, isn't it? I mean, the bands
Yeah,
seem to play like 70 minutes or 60 minutes or something, but
yeah,
you guys always put on a hell of a show. I mean, I've been watching you guys for years.
we
I think
try.
the last time though, you guys played in Portland was with Metal Church, which was a great co-headline. Boy, that thing blew the roof off the
Yeah,
venue.
that was a good time. I remember that. We were supposed to play on the last tour with Queensryche we did in the spring, but
Hmm.
that Portland date ended up not happening for us, so
Right.
we didn't do Portland.
So what are some memorable things about visiting Portland while on tour? Do you even get much time? I mean, you guys probably.
You must be from Portland.
I'm in Oregon. I'm in the Columbia River Gorge, so I'm nearby. So yeah.
Ah, cool.
So I'll be at the Portland show.
I mean, I love Portland. I've been there. I've played there a bunch of times, obviously, and I've also been there. My daughter had a girlfriend who moved there, so we went and visited one time and hung out in Portland. And my wife and I did the Willamette Valley tour and
Oh,
did
right. Yeah.
wine tasting tours. It was so much fun. It was great. And it's a
Nice.
beautiful, I mean, it's a beautiful state. Portland itself is great. It's always been a great rock town for us. We've always done great. They love their
Yeah.
hard rock and metal. And the people are super down to earth and awesome. It's just that West Coast vibe. And, you know, we're
Right.
from LA, so it's
Sure.
we
Yeah.
get along great up there. I love the options. There's a lot of great restaurants there too. So it's cool. I love Portland.
Do you ever do the voodoo donuts?
I did Voodoo Donuts when I was there.
Oh, no.
It was insane.
How does that compare? I mean, because I mean, again, we've had voodoo donuts for around for a while, but then they
Yeah.
also started popping up in Southern California and stuff like that. I mean, it tastes pretty much the same, but it's kind of a novelty thing, but they do some unique stuff.
Yeah, they do great things, you know. I mean, I wish I ate bacon because
Mm.
the ones with bacon look and smell
Oh
amazing,
yeah.
but
They are. Those are great. So, you guys have been putting out consistent stuff throughout the years. I think more recently, you did Win Hands Down, which, you guys toured behind with when I saw you guys with Metal Church, and then
mhm.
Punching the Sky. I mean, again, you guys shouldn't be this good this late in the game. You know what I mean? I think you guys have earned
I'll take
I
that as a
guess the
compliment.
you guys have earned the right to just kind of phone it in and just throw in some two, three good tunes in the albums, but they've been consistently good. Why is that? And is it
Thanks.
part of the fact that you guys I think you all like each other. So that's a huge factor. I mean, I think that's probably it. And is it the fact that you guys respect one another like you do, that you crank out these great records?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a very long history together. We've well known each other since grade school. All except Jeff, but we've
Hmm.
known Jeff since like I don't know, 81 or 82. So
Right,
it's almost like grade school.
right.
Um, but we have a long history there, and so that keeps us together, and you know, it helps the vibe of keeping things tight and the family vibe and everything.
Hmm.
But you know, we've always had this ethic of like, you know, I was talking about this a little earlier. You know, we were really influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal and the magazines. We used to look at Kerrang magazine every Friday or every 2 weeks, so it was
Right.
coming out, and we would get it here down in Pasadena, California, and it was the only place you could get it, or one of the only places actually. And we were so enthralled by the new wave of British heavy metal, in particular what was going on in the UK and at the Marquee Club in London.
Mhm.
And so for us, like our whole goal was to just like bring that here, you know. So whenever we go on stage, and it's true even to today, to this day, and
Mhm.
even when we approach writing, making music, we just have to be as like completely honest about everything that we're doing. Never want to be phoning anything in,
Right.
whether it's songwriting or even performing. You know, we always try to be like, you know, we just try to be like we're on stage in front of a million people every single time. And that goes for writing music as well. Like try to set our standards really high just
Mhm.
because we want to be proud of everything that we're doing, whether it's
Right.
a record that we're making or every time we leave the stage, we want it to be known that we gave it all our all. We put everything we have into everything that we do. And that's just the work ethic we've had since day one. So, you know, um, that's it's the reason why, you know, you don't see like you don't see Armored Saint. It's really just John Bush and four other guys. I mean,
Right.
it's the same members. It's the same
Hmm.
guys that started the band and that's been in the band since, you know, the late 80s. So,
Right.
you know, this is something we take a lot of pride in and you know, we just that's the thing that's our mantra. You know,
Right.
we have to leave it all out there.
Right. Yeah, I know you mentioned, you take pride in what you do and stuff like that. Now, obviously, that's clear. How do you guys handle when somebody in the band is really into a tune and the rest of you guys aren't feeling it and don't think that it's going to mesh with the other collection of songs that are going to make the record?
Well, you know, there's some there we have the group doesn't really work in an absolute democracy. There's certain voices in the band, and when it comes to certain things like musical direction and musical sort of QC, quality control,
Hmm.
I've donned this hat myself, and it's just something that I grew into over the
Right.
years. It wasn't like I was born into this. It's just
Hmm.
something I've taken a hold of. And maybe a lot of people know that I've acted as the band's producer on the that
Right.
past few records, and that's a result of that. So at some point, in a group situation, everybody has their voices and everybody has their opinions and inputs and so forth. But at
Hmm.
some point, someone has to be the the final judge. I mean,
Right.
that's the only way it really works for us. I don't know about the way other groups
Sure.
work, but in this particular group, at some point, if there's any kind of a situation that you just brought up, at some point,
Right.
someone's got to say, look, someone has to make the call, and
Hmm.
it's not a dictatorship or by any
Sure.
means. It's just that at some point, someone's got to say, look, enough. We have to come to an agreement. We can agree to disagree, but this is where
Right.
we're going.
Yeah. Now, how did you guys keep the band from drifting into too many of the directions? I know you talked about the dedication to the new wave of British heavy metal type sound, but I mean, especially around the mid 90s and then the 2000s. I mean, you saw a lot of bands kind of tinker around with stuff that was more on the new metal, or some of those other subgenres and stuff, and you guys stayed true to everything. How did you deal with those temptations? Because I mean, it could have been a easy cash grab at some point.
Well, we are guilty of looking over our shoulder. I mean, I talk about that all the time. There was a period of time which kind of lasted a long time, in my
Hmm.
opinion, that we often looked over our shoulder too often to see what was going on around us, and um, I think that was a distraction, particularly to me, in the late '80s and when there was a period of time when that happened. Um, and I think that, we finally came to realize that, and the realization didn't come, believe it or not, until, in my opinion, anyway,
Uh-huh.
it didn't come until much later, like between Revelation and La Raza, which was
Okay.
2000 to 2010.
Right.
I started to realize that, you know what, we we always wanted to try different things and be influenced by different things, because we were influenced by, for the mostly our influences come from mid to late 70s
Hmm.
bands like Thin Lizzy and UFO,
Right.
and Queen, bands that sort of were undefinable, and
Right.
their records were sort of had a lot of variety on them and stuff. And so we dabbled in that along the way,
Hmm.
even from the beginning, but we really didn't start embracing that until we started writing for Symbol of Salvation. And
Right.
this is the point where we started to realize that, it's okay for us to embrace all our influences and incorporate those things. Luckily, we were never sort of forced or felt ourselves fall into
Right.
feeling a need to catch on to some coattails of another trend that was happening necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, we were trying to get away from trends.
Right.
In the late '80s and early '90s was when where hair metal became really big,
Hmm.
and we somehow got lumped in with a little bit of that just by virtue of where we came from, which is Los Angeles. The scene here was exploded with it was a total
Right.
hair metal glam scene here, and we had already moved on because we got signed to Chrysalis and had
Hmm.
already put out a couple of records, but just by virtue of being from LA, we always had this sort of, I don't know, association with that. So we were trying to distance ourselves from that particular scene.
Hmm.
But you know, we've had we're influenced by, as much as we're influenced by, Queen and Thin Lizzy and UFO, we're also
Right.
influenced by Motorhead and like
Hmm.
early Saxon and early Maiden and of course Sabbath. The list goes on. But
Right.
so we've always tried to just really, at the end of the day, just try to be true to ourselves and have our own voice. And I think that we've been able to do that. Like I said, and the realization came to me in 2010 when I finally said, why do we ever look over our shoulders?
Right.
We've always done our own thing since day one, and we've always kind of been this band sort of on their own island. Like we
Right.
weren't a thrash band. We weren't a traditional metal band in the traditional sense.
Hmm.
We weren't, then came power metal a little bit later. We
Right.
weren't a power metal band, and we weren't a glam band. So we were a little bit like in limbo land, sort of.
Right.
And I think that wore on us a little bit. Like, where do we fit in? But at the end of the day, like I said, in 2010, we started to realize, what, that doesn't matter. Like
Right.
what our strength is that we just do our own thing. So follow that path, and that's
Right.
basically what we're doing.
Now, if you were to select an underrated album from your catalog, which one would it be? I mean, for me as a fan, I'd say Raising Fear. And, um, I had discovered Armored Saint prior to the release of that album, but that was the first album I bought by you guys. So for me, it's got a special something about it, just
Yeah,
because it was the first album I bought. Probably
yeah.
not the best record, but man, there's some great stuff on there. For yourself, I mean, what's the underrated album of your catalog in your opinion? And what's your take on Raising Fear this many years later?
Well, I'll say my take first on Raising Fear was that, and this is I've talked about this a lot. This was during the period what I just was giving you
Hmm.
insight on about
Right,
when we were a little bit looking over our shoulder, what's going on with the people around, the bands around us, and what's going on in the scene. And thrash was getting big at the time, and also hair metal was starting to rise up as well, right around this same time.
hmm,
So we were like, where do we fit in? So to me, we also, this should be noted that we were having some internal problems business wise. We were on the verge of getting dropped by our major label, Chrysalis Records. We had lost our A&R guy who signed us, Ron Fair. He was no longer there during the making of that record. So we lost our champion within the company. We had problems with management at the time. We were leaving Q Prime Management, who was a
hmm,
really big manager at the time,
right,
and we had worked with them for several years, and we just came to the conclusion that it wasn't working together. So we were leaving with them. A lot of internal stuff going on, a lot of second guessing. In my opinion, it's a very confused record because of it. Um, However, I agree with you. There's some really cool shining moments on it. There's
hmm,
some amazing guitar playing by Dave Pritchard,
right,
which is his last full record that we know of. I mean, that everybody has heard.
hmm,
Is no telling where he would have gone after that. It's
right,
really, really great guitar playing on it. And so it has a lot of cool moments. But as a whole, for me, it's a bit confusing. Um, and and I understand this. You're not the first person who said that about Raising Fear. I've met a lot of friends actually
hmm,
who were like, the same thing. Like that was their first record that they
right,
that they bought. Um, and if I had to pick a sort of a underappreciated record, um, I mean, I don't know. I think that they've all gotten really good responses from people in general. It's hard for me to really say, but I'd
right,
say maybe the one that maybe kind of went over people's heads was La Raza,
hmm,
when it came out in 2010. And that was again, as I was explaining earlier, this was the first time that I think we approached the record with a sort of a laissez-faire attitude and sort of like we can do whatever we want to, we can take chances, can experiment a little bit, we can gather influences from the bands we grew up on in the 70s. So for me, that record is it's almost more of a hard rock record than it is a
hmm,
metal record.
right,
And maybe most people would agree with that.
sure,
Um, but I think that there's some really great songs on it, great performances by everybody, and
hmm.
the production's great on it. So for me, it's a really, really cool record. It's It has its own unique vibe, and there's no other record in our catalog that sounds like it.
Right. Nice. Just got a couple more questions and I'll cut you loose. Thank you so much. I
No
have to
problem.
ask you about your stint with Merciful Fate.
Yeah.
What was a highlight of that, and how difficult was it to step away from that?
Well, I mean, the highlight for me was like almost every single show. I mean, it was every show was amazing. There was always a very great vibe with
Mhm,
it. And part of the reason for that vibe was that um, you know, personally, I got along really great with everybody in the band, all the band members, King, Mike, Hank, Bjorn, everyone was, I mean, it was a really tight-knit, really friendly group of people, and it was a real pleasure just being there. And they welcomed me with open arms and made me feel right at home first 5 minutes. So it
mhm.
was really, really, it just made life so much more awesome than it already was going to be.
Right,
But walking out on stage in front of these huge festivals,
right.
was pretty damn awesome.
Yeah,
I can't even compare it to anything else. It was just really, really cool. And
nice.
not to mention the fact that I'm a big early Merciful Fate fan. I kind of lost interest as they went into the 90s, but
Hmm.
the first three records, which is what our set mostly comprised of,
Right.
it's my favorite period. So I'm just like a kid in a candy store, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I'm playing these songs. These songs are, I love these songs, and I'm playing them with the band.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a really cool moment, and it made for a really difficult decision for me to step away from it, and for all of those reasons, and I just felt like I had painted myself into a corner a little bit, trying to be
Hmm.
in multiple projects and bands, and
Right.
and uh, they deserve more than that. They deserve someone who's there 24/7 and it has to be number one.
Hmm.
And I had a really hard time stepping away from that, you know. I just did. It's just one of those things. Had to suck it up and
Right.
walk away, you
Right.
know.
Last thing, and then I'll have you do an intro for this whole thing so we can tag it on the front end. But last question, since this is We Go to 11, it's got a little bit of a Spinal Tap-esque type of connotation to it. What's a Spinal Tap moment that you experienced that stands out in your mind?
Uh, well, there's too many of them.
What about the most recent one, Joey? Maybe that one will
Uh,
stand out.
um, um, Let me try to think about this. Well, the scene. I mean, there's the scene where they're going to the show. They're in. I think it's shot in Cleveland, actually.
Mm,
Essentially not shot in Cleveland, but it's supposed to be Cleveland.
right,
But they're at this venue and they're going to the stage and they are walking through
right,
trying to get to the stage and they get lost. And then
yeah,
it's like, where do we go? And it's just classic. It's a classic scene, right?
right.
Well, that's definitely happened more than once. Um, we've been through, we've been through situations like that where the backstage is not marked. There's nothing
No,
clear.
no,
We're trying to get to the stage. No one has come to take us. We're sort of on our own. We hear the intro playing. We're like running around like chickens with no heads. Like we don't know which way to go. There's been venues we played where we had to walk through kitchens and bathrooms to get to
jeez,
the stage, which is all very humbling as
right,
your grand intro's going on and
yeah,
you're going through the kitchen. Oh, excuse me.
yeah.
You're walking by the fryer and the fry cooks there looking at you like, dude, what are you doing? I mean,
So stuff like that. All right,
I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, but
right.
I can't think of anything particular. But
But that
those things have happened more than
okay.
once.
Thank you so much.
You got it,
Take
man.
care, man.
C
See you in
Come out
Portland.
and see us. Come out and
Oh,
see us in
I'm
Portland.
gonna be there. Take care.
Awesome. See you then.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.